Hello and thanks for joining us. I am Vin Martin Obiora Ilo. This is the Signature Show. The passing week was an eventful week with the shocking abduction of the YOBE schoolgirls. This comes at a time when the government and the military authorities have consistently assured Nigerians that Boko Haram has been decimated and degraded. The more embarrassing angle to the tale is the inconsistent and conflicting information coming from government officials and the security agencies. First was Governor Gaidan with a false statement that some of the girls were rescued, followed by the incoherent explanations by the YOBE State Commissioner of Police that left Nigerians more confused than informed. The truth is that as we speak this afternoon, no authority in Nigeria can say for sure what is the true position with regards to the unfortunate incident. Yes, the president said it was a national disaster, but like our experience with the Chibok girls, that still remains unresolved 4 years after. There is nothing that gives Nigerians reasons to be hopeful. The presidency says it has sent more troops and surveillance aircraft to keep an eye on all movements in the entire territory on a 24-hour basis in the hope that all these missing girls will be found. But the PDP heaps the entire blame for the kidnap of the girls on the feet of President Buhari and the APC. Reacting to the kidnap, the Party 3 spokesman Mr. Kola Ologbondiyan accused the presidency of putting Nigerians at risk by allegedly deceiving the people and issuing what he described as false performance indices, suggesting that insurgents had been completely routed. The long and short of these conflicting, embarrassing and confusing narratives is that except God intervenes, this may be a replay of the Chibok nightmare. Also this week, Asuwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu threw a bombshell at the national chairman of the APC, accusing him of sabotaging his peace-making efforts with his activities in states like Kogi. With a letter which was released to the press on Thursday, many are wondering if Tinubu is in a position to be the peace envoy. Some say it is part of the plan to malign the chairman to make him disadvantaged as the APC approaches their long-awaited convention. Whatever the reason is, political watchers are of the opinion that the party does not need a crisis between the Tinubu and the Oyegu forces, who interestingly are raring to go to battle. Well, enough of the politics of the APC. Today on our program, we are focusing on the security implications of the YOBE kidnap and what could have made it possible. We have experts within and outside the studio to analyze the situation, plus what the ordinary Nigerians are thinking about that. But first, let's see what is trending online.
Guys, we have found the money swallowing snake. Over. We are the EFCC animal theft fighters. Why did you swallow the 36 million naira?
What is the 36 million naira doing in the JAMB office?
And when the snakes start swallowing money?
When the JAMB office become a microfinance bank.
You don't answer questions with questions. And what do you intend to do with the money, you serpent?
To buy followers on my new Twitter account, @RichSnake_36 million gang.
Is that not the Asurok rats?
This not just the beginning. Next week, the lizards go chop all the pipelines, drink all the fuel inside.
Thanks.
Next year, the mosquitoes go swallow all the ballot boxes for the election.
But me kick by.
Glad to know you're still with us on the Signature Show. And in this segment of our program, we are focusing on the YOBE kidnap. Big embarrassment for everybody in Nigeria. And I have KABIR Adamu. KABIR Adamu is chairman, American Society for Industrial Security, Abuja chapter, and is also MD Beacon Consulting, a security firm. KABIR, you're welcome to our show.
Thank you.
Let me start by asking you, KABIR, what would you attribute this rise in insurgency and security challenges in our country today?
Well, it's a bit difficult to confirm that there is a rise. Yes, there is a public perception that there is a rise, mainly because of the magnitude of the issues we're looking at. But if you look at the statistics, it doesn't suggest a rise. Some of the most prominent security challenges would include terrorism, criminality, of which kidnapping is one of them. If you look at all of this, the indices does not point to a rise. But the good thing is that there is a media attention to them, and so that is evoking a lot of discussions. And of course, it reflects the consequences of which the people are feeling, the impact of these circumstances. Having said that, why is there this development? It's an issue of governance. We can't run away from it. People of different segments of the society are feeling marginalized in one way or the other. For some, it's true marginalization. For some, it's just a perception of marginalization. Then add that to the economic circumstance that the country has found itself. So in summary, those are the issues that are leading to several of these insecurity challenges that we're looking at across the country. Another trigger element is the proliferation of weapons that are across our country. If you look at our borders, they're porous. Even the borders that are supposed to be manned, corruption, is allowing the importation of such light weapons, small and arms and light weapons into the country, and they're in the hands of non-state actors. We should also mention the actions of politicians, or their inactions in some instances, where they are arming these non-state actors, unfortunately, either to protect them or in some instances to serve as tools to achieve their objectives. So it's a combination of all of these factors that are bringing this up together. There is a suggestion which, from where I stand as a security risk analyst, I do not think it's correct, that the presidency is perhaps responsible for this development. I have looked at the data from way back to, say, 2010 up to today, and this is on that position that I'm saying they don't suggest an increase. There is none really.
That's an area I'd like to interrogate further. I mean, let's go to herdsmen challenge in the country. Are you saying there's no increase? They don't have more audacity? The activities are not spreading wider than it was before? Are you saying that the coming back to life of Boko Haram does not indicate a rise? Are you saying that the insurgent activities we even see in places like the South that had, gone down, and of course what happened with the Biafra movement, are not indicators showing that there's a rise in this kind of activity?
Okay, let's pick them one after the other. The herdsmen, quote-unquote, violence, I prefer to call it what it is, rural banditry. There are probably about 3 elements that have been lumped together into the malicious narrative, that's what I call it, called herdsmen violence. Cattle rustling is an example. We saw what happened in Zamfara and the consequences of that. So to a typical observer, it would seem, in Zamfara you have Fulanis attacking Fulanis. We all know that the dominant population in Zamfara is Fulanis. So that's not what happened. It's a pure case of criminality. A group of people involved in criminality and then carrying out their activity. Now let's move down to Benue State, where part of what we've seen a consequence of the climate change, which has aggravated the communal challenges that we've been having in Benue State. Essentially, it's a challenge of economic resources. That is why I said at the beginning, it's a governance challenge. What is the economic resource in this case? It's land. On the one hand, you have the farmers, for one reason or the other, expanding their farming land and then encroaching into age-old grazing lands that is stopping these herders from moving on them. On the other hand, you have these herders who, for one reason or the other, have refused to recognize that the grazing in somebody's farm, quote and unquote, is unlawful. For one reason or the other, I honestly don't know why that is. So it's not necessarily an increase, but a recognition of an issue that has been existing. Let's take ourselves back to 2011, 2012, where such cases have repeated itself. What led to the crisis in Jos, as an example, is the same herder or land dispute, quote and unquote. The third element which we must talk about is the activities of politicians that unfortunately have armed these ethnic militias that are now aggravating the challenge. In the case of the cattle rustling that I've mentioned, it's believed, based on security information available to me, that it's an organized crime. So question is, how are they getting their arms? Someone somewhere is arming them for whatever purpose. There have been insinuations in some states that the political element in that state armed them, used them for a particular purpose, and then abandoned them. Now they've become a threat.
But there's a narrative that, talking about the herdsmen, that these are like an international criminal gang, you know, a criminal force that does hits and then retreats. So when we talk about politicians, because when you talk about politicians, I want to assume you're talking about Nigerian politicians, but we hear that these are not Nigerians, that they come in when there's a clash, a local clash, which ordinarily maybe you end up killing one person or two. These international criminal gangs, well armed with semi-automatic rifles and weapons, get into places in Nigeria, do their hit, and disappear. So how would you now attribute it to local politicians?
I said militia, ethnic militia, and frankly, I'm not just restricting it to a particular ethnic group.
Yeah.
I generalize by saying ethnic group, militia. So it could be a particular governor arming a Fulani ethnic militia. It could be a particular governor arming a thief ethnic militia. What has happened, and I say this with all sense of responsibility as a professional, we have been unable, both from the side of the media and from the side of we security politicians and practitioners, we've been unable to disaggregate these challenges. For we to solve the challenges, we have to disaggregate them. How do we disaggregate them? We have to put them singly, analyze the challenge, and then proffer solutions. Right now, we are lumping everything together, and because we are lumping everything together, we are not allowing ourselves to see what the issue is. As an example, it's impossible from where I stand to relate what is happening in Zamfara with what is happening in Benue. Likewise, what is happening in Kaduna. In terms of magnitude, probably what is happening in Zamfara is worse than what is happening in Benue. But because it's been lumped, and because for some reasons some people have attached either a religious or an ethnic clout to it, people are not seeing the fact that this is purely criminal, and to an extent it's a socio-political challenge aided by some consequence. So my point, let us disaggregate the challenges. When we disaggregate them, then we understand them. There is no doubt that there is a possibility yet to be confirmed, except if we go by what Governor Rufai of Kaduna said, that he did a study and he's been able to confirm that some foreigners actually came in, and then he was able to meet them and he paid them off. Whether that is true or not, I don't have any confirmation to that, but he's indicated that happened. So yes, there is a possibility that there may be a foreign element, but is that foreign element being imported to carry out a political or ethnic agenda? I don't think so. If I understood what Rufai was trying to say, he says they came as part of the traditional grazing cycle that normally happens, and then while they were in Nigeria passing through, some of their cattle were killed, and for that reason they've been trying to exact vengeance, and so that was why he met them to calm them down.
Okay, let's look at we have this on the ground. Well, you've advanced a way out. Let's aggregate them and isolate the issues: criminality, cattle rustling, armed banditry, and things like that. Is the government helpless? Is there nothing the government can do to arrest this situation? It's a challenge we all know that is here. So are we just going to fold our hands and say, okay, fine, let it go on?
I'm not too happy with the current approach by our national security leaders, if I could call them that. Just 2 days ago, the State Council meeting was held, and the only thing that came out of it, at least publicly, is the fact that money will be pumped into a particular economic venture. That's not going to solve the problem. Frankly, our national security architecture is not appropriate for the current security challenges that we have. Why do I say this? We lack a coordinating body to give us focus on how to approach insecurity challenges.
Are you suggesting something like Homeland Security in the United States?
That's one option.
That kind of department?
But unfortunately, we do not have the money for that. So why don't we correct what we have presently?
Okay.
What we have presently is the Office of the National Security Advisor. He is the coordinating body for security functions within the country. But as it were, unfortunately, he's not serving that role. A very good example is the kind of public challenges that we've seen between heads of some of the organizations. If that office, the Office of the National Security Advisor, had been functional and effective, we wouldn't have seen that type of public, infighting between the heads of some of these organizations. The argument someone listening would probably proffer is that he's not being allowed, politicians are not allowing him to do that. So I would counter that by saying then the president should appoint somebody who has the clout to rein in politicians. A good example, I hope you permit me to mention names here. When General Gusau was manning that office, everybody knew he had that clout to control, on the one hand, the military hierarchy, and on the other hand, the politicians. So that means appointment that office should take into consideration these elements. Whoever is occupying that office should have the clout. We shouldn't just appoint a technocrat, which is the case right now. He's well respected, someone who has risen, to the height of his career before he retired. But unfortunately, the fact that he lacks the clout, to control politicians on the one hand, and the military generals is expressing itself right now. So bottom line, we need an office that is able to coordinate security functions so that our security focus, which is to provide security for life and property in Nigeria, is given some kind of focus.
Okay, let's go to the issue of the day, the kidnap, just this passing week, of students in a girls' college in YOBE. We hear every day that Boko Haram has been degraded, or they are no longer there. And Nigerians were shocked when almost the same thing repeated itself. Now we don't know whether it's 105. We don't know whether some have been rescued. There's so much confusion. So if truly Boko Haram has been degraded, why are we facing this? Let me not use rise again, but because why are we now facing these pockets of Boko Haram attacks across the northeast and other areas?
Basically because we've not been able to do our homework by anticipating what the enemy will do, and then prevent what the enemy will do. We've put too much emphasis on the military component of our counter-terrorism strategy. Frankly, we're putting too much pressure on the military. And I think for some reasons the military hierarchy is accepting it. And I don't want to think there's a suggestion, and it's probably credible, that because of the money that is going into the campaign, they're happy. The money goes, and so they accept it. They need to tell the political leaders the truth, that not everything, not all the components of counter-terrorism can be handled by the military. There are other components that need to be handled by the civilian security department. So back to your question, what happened is this. It was like a stone thrown into a beehive. When you do that, the bees disperse. And when they disperse, they are angry, they hit, they stink, and the stink will be very painful. So that's what we've seen right now. No doubt, Boko Haram has been decimated. I know this because I operate extensively in the northeast, and I know they've been decimated. Their stronghold, quote unquote, part of it has been taken over by the military, especially the recent search by the Nigerian military, an aerial and land offensive called Operation Deep Punch. It was remarkable in the successes it achieved. However, what happened is that these guys dispersed. So if you look at the map of the northeast, where Sambisa Forest is, if they are dispersing, where do they go to? They come down to Yobe, parts of Yobe. They go down to ADAMU, especially the northern part, because there is an age-old known route used by them to crisscross between Nigeria and Cameroon. So that's why you saw an increase in attacks in Madagali and Michika in northern ADAMU. Likewise in Yobe, we anticipated there will be an increase in attack. Now, for some reasons, in DAPCHI, which is Busari local government, where the girls were kidnapped, there used to be a military checkpoint right in front of the school, actually. Now, just about 3 weeks ago, thereabout, their military checkpoint it wasn't dismantled, but the military there were redeployed. I'm not surprised, because the military is stretched. Peace had been restored, quote unquote. There wasn't any incident in that particular location. They redeployed them to where their services are needed. Ordinarily, in a same country where things are going properly, the civilian security department should have taken over that check from the military.
Maybe the police.
Exactly. Now, incidentally, there is a police division next to the school where that happened. Till date, I haven't heard that when the incident was happening, there was a response from the police. I believe the IG of police should be accountable to Nigerians. He should come out and tell Nigerians why his men did not respond when that incident was happening. The police should have taken over from the military and then should have protected that town while the military was carrying out whatever operations is. What of the civil defense? They're there too. So in military strategy, you take, you hold, and you build. Now the functions of the military is to take. The holding and the building in most instances should be done by civilian security departments. In Nigeria, all of these three is being done by the military, and it's wrong. How many soldiers are we talking about in the country? At the last count, they were involved in 28 operations internally. If you add cartridges, that's 29, actually. So there is a mistake there, and I think the leadership of the military needs to come out and tell the political leadership the truth. You need to emphasize the involvement of especially the police in supporting the military. Once the military take, they should hand over to the police to hold. The rebuilding component can be done by other components. Right now, that's not happening, unfortunately. So, bottom line, we are not anticipating ahead. We are not that element where we brainstorm option A, option B. If we do this is what the enemy will do, and this is how to prevent them. We're not doing that. Perhaps in the course of the discussion, we can talk about how to strengthen security in soft targets.
Well, Kabir, let's go to Lagos, where Colonel Tony NYIAM is standing by on the phone. Colonel, how would you describe this kidnap that took place in Yobe, after we've heard repeatedly from this government and security forces that Boko Haram has been degraded and decimated?
I think you've started by nailing the whole thing. I would say that what we're experiencing, it's because I like to move away from the usual superficial way we address matters to go to what I would call the different levels of national security failures, which account for what has happened. There are failures. I must begin to say, I must commend our soldiers for the work they're doing. I must also sympathize with the families of people who are worried about their daughters who have been carted away. Back to the topic, there are what I will call operations, policy making, and constitutional failures which account for what has happened. Immediately observable is failures in intelligence gathering. One of the major reasons for this is the inadequate manpower for human intelligence. Now, we move on to what we started with, the premature declaration of victory, and in effect boasting that the violent insurgents of the Northeast have been defeated. This may have accounted for a false sense of security and the attendant complacency and consequent dropping of the guard. There is nobody who goes into the kind of war we are going. This is not a conventional war. There has hardly been winners in a situation of unconventional warfare. Go to Vietnam, go to the French in Algeria, go to South Africa, go to Zimbabwe, go to Northern Ireland. No conventional armed forces declares that they won an unconventional war, because by the nature of its asymmetry, and also the fact that it's a war of the mind, it's not a war of physical objects. So people don't say they've won wars when it comes to unconventional warfare. So I advise my colleagues to desist from making any claims of total defeat of Boko Haram. That is not the issue. We recognize that they've beaten Boko Haram in the skills where Boko Haram are strong, which is the skill where Boko Haram is not strong in, which is conventional warfare. What I mean by that is the war in which you capture places. The war of unconventional is not a capture of places, it's a war of the hearts and minds. And it's not surprising that the Boko Haram have returned to tell the government that they are still alive. So that was the premature declaration of victory created a focus of security. Okay.
Well, Colonel, let me return to Kabir in the studio with me. Yes, Kabir, you know, you talked about decimation of Boko Haram, and of course you gave the analogy of the beehives. It looks like we're not looking at the future. And why am I saying this? When you decimate a group like Boko Haram, it's just common sense that they were going to go into hiding and start operating in cells and hitting, you know, easy targets or soft targets like secondary schools, like people on the road, you know, like hospitals, you know. Is there no way using intelligence we can identify their cells and then destroy them?
Intelligence is the determining factor in the success of any military or security operation. Unfortunately, we are not doing well in that area. The president recognizes it, and I know recently, a couple of months ago, he ordered the creation of an intelligence fusion center in Maiduguri. There is supposed to be one in Abuja. I'm not sure it's functional. The synergy between the security operations is not working very well at all. If that intelligence was working very well, each of the agencies will be feeding intelligence into the various diffusion center as an example, and then they are working together as one. So if intelligence was functional, that means the attack in YOBE would have known about it and would have prevented it. But because intelligence was not functional, we didn't know that. It's not really right to say intelligence would be reactive. Intelligence is supposed to be proactive, to give you an indication and then to allow you to stop the development. Right now it's not happening, and the principal reason why it's not happening, at the beginning of our conversation, governance. People unfortunately don't have enough confidence in the government, and the military, the police are a representation of government. So how do they supply information to them? Let me give you a very good example. This is not confirmed too, but at least one of the international media stations has reported it, that some of the parents of the DAPCHI schoolgirls have been arrested. And the reason is because they pelted the governor's vehicle when he came to them. That does not build confidence. The governor came and he made, I would say, an unfortunate, reckless statement. Parents
about rescues,
were
false.
Exactly. So the parents got angry and they pelted some of his convoy. And now I hear 2 or 3 of them have been arrested, at least as reported by a media station. So how do you expect the same locality?
This is unforgivable. I mean, you're destroying the fabrics of trust
between public. So that's the challenge, really, governance. Because there is no that confidence, that fabric has been destroyed. People find it difficult to give information to the security forces. At the beginning of the insurgency, there was a time when people who volunteered information to the police, their houses will be visited in the evening and they will be killed. That has been to an extent improved upon. But again, when things like this happen, it destroys that. So back to your question, intelligence is the core of to any military operation. And right now we're not doing well in that area. We need to improve on the trust between people and the security forces. And we need to provide easy means for communicating. If I'll add to your question regarding the protection of safe targets, there was a Safe School initiative that was launched by President Goodluck Jonathan, former President Goodluck Jonathan, together with the UN Envoy on Global Education, Gordon Brown, former UK Prime Minister, Gordon Brown. They launched that initiative, and as far as I know, £10 million was generated by that initiative. Nigeria contributed as a government. Several private individuals contributed. Recently, the Safe School initiative was subsumed by the Presidential Committee on the Northeast Initiative. Now, from where I stand, I can tell you confidently that there is no accountability in the processes with which that money was expended. I am not aware, based on my operations in the Northeast, that any of these schools have a checklist with which to improve their security. How much will it cost to develop a checklist and share it with the state ministries of education, the federal ministry and the state ministry? What that would do is, if you are the principal of a school or the administrator of a school, you can look at that checklist, tick, 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 and ask yourself, have I reached the minimum standards that would allow this school to operate? The second component of the Safe School initiative would have been to move pupils from vulnerable schools to less vulnerable areas. That didn't happen. So I would call on President Buhari and the National Assembly, let's have accountability. What was that money used for? How come the DAPCHI happened 4 years after the Chibok incident? We need accountability. Somebody needs to answer for that.
Yeah, Kabir, let's go back to Colonel NYIAM in Lagos. Yeah, Colonel, how can we make our military more combat ready and more effective and prime them for the challenge of fighting insurgents like Boko Haram?
I've addressed this matter at the operational level. Let me go to the much more problem, which is to deal with the medium term and the long term problem. And this is where the challenge is. The challenge is that the policymakers are failing. At the medium and long-term policy failures are these. We have a situation where we have over 2 years now been putting an overstretched military manpower and the attendant fatigue of the personnel. A number of the military personnel have stayed more than the tour of duty has gone beyond the standard operational procedure. A number has stayed well over 9 months in the field. Usually it's about 6 months at the most. And the policy making failure here is the failure to recognize that there are dangers in relying too much on overstretched military power. The policy making failure needs to be urgently addressed by what I call a win-win fourfold increment of personnel across the board the armed forces, the police, intelligence agencies, and by so doing, we would have dealt with this failures in intelligence gathering, which is one of the operational failures we are experiencing. There is inadequate manpower for human intelligence. So this fourfold increment I'm suggesting of both national security personnel in uniform and those with plain clothes will, I say it will, because it will also solve the problem of our massive youth unemployment. By employing these youths, who themselves are easily vulnerable to be turned into insurgents, you give them a sense of purpose in life.
Okay.
And the approach is, any youth employed into the army is giving his basic training on the art of combat, and at the same time giving training in any other skills that he can use in later life. So that is at the two levels. At the remote cause, which of course is the root cause of all this, is that there is constitutional failures. Failure arising from the falsehood of the 99 Nigerian Constitution, which makes a state governor chief security officer only in name. There is a need for making state governments indeed, by giving them the means to enforce the laws they make. There is need for the constitutional reforms to align for the establishment of state police. This devolution of civil power from the federal government to federal state is long overdue. Apart from this, we've dealt with the issue of devolving civil power. I am suggesting we should also devolve military power to producing units. This is not inventing the wheel. This is what we have in all the countries around our neighborhood. They have what is called gendarmes. Gendarmes are a branch of the armed forces dedicated to internal security and under the control of civilian authority. So we need to have state guards or gendarmes under the control of the people of a state. As to the issue of afraid of the abuse by the state governor, that I have addressed in many forums. In most countries, when it comes to operations, the politicians have no control over the politicians. Otherwise, the police will not have indicted Zuma, the sitting president in South Africa, or a sitting head of government, Prime Minister of Israel. At the moment, facing police indictment, because in those places, the operations are not controlled by politicians. What I would say, what we're experiencing now, as YOBE. Sure. Thank you.
Thanks a million. Thanks a million.
God bless. God bless.
Okay, so well, that was the Colonel, sharing with us his own perspective to, I don't want to call it debate, but to this discussion. But finally, let's end our conversation by what the military is trying to do with Shekau. Well, some people say whatever they put on his head, as they say in our language, is so small, $8,000 or thereabout.
3 million naira.
About 3 million naira. Could this kind of whistleblowing that we have in the corruption fight, can we bring it into our security fight, where in collaboration with the ordinary people, there's a kind of bounty on the heads of some of these collaborators of Boko Haram, so that information, there'll be an incentive to give information, besides what you talked about, that information sources must be protected?
Yes, it would help. the American government has $7 million right now on the head of Shekau. They had $5 million on the head of Al-Barnawi, who is presently in court, being prosecuted by the Nigerian authorities. So yes, financial reward is a good incentive for the supply of information. However, we need to understand that we're talking about an ideological movement. Money sometimes does not really influence them. What influences them is ideology. So I would like to see an expansion of what is called the counter-violent extremism mechanism, which was recently launched by the Office of the National Security Advisor. They called it the prevention of violent extremism, something like that. And the idea is to have all the ministries, departments, and agencies of government have a desk office on countering violent extremism. In every counter-terrorism warfare, apart from the military component, you have the soft component. Now, this soft component is supposed to tackle the ideology together with some other elements. Now, I would like to see an expansion of that together with the monetary component that you mentioned. That is only when we would have defeated the ideology. But the moment we don't do that, then we're allowing the group to regroup. A good example is there is the kidnap in YOBE. What will they use that for? Two purposes. Firstly, to announce to their members that we're still there, because it will get a lot of media coverage. So their members will be happy that, you know, the group is still active. Secondly, funding. One way or the other, money will exchange hands before these girls are released. So they have funding. So we need to take that away from them, and the best way to do that is through countering the ideology. The Takfir ideology, which is what the two Islamist groups are based on, is based on 4 elements, and almost all the known Islamic clerics agree that those 4 elements are a misinterpretation of the scriptures. So the Nigerian government needs to publicize that, so that they cast doubts on the mind of the members. And then, of course, they disallow them from recruiting new members. Then would have defeated the group.
Thank you, KABIR ADAMU, for your insight. KABIR ADAMU is chairman, American Society of Industrial Security, ASIS, International Abuja Chapter 273. Thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
When we return, the show continues.
I think I come from the constituency of the security. The security operatives have working very well. What is happening is a crime. Even in US, crime can never be eradicated. Just like as I am now, we're talking here, others are there planning what to do again. So an issue of abduction of girls, by His grace, God is in control, and the government is very, very much in control.
I feel really disappointment in our government. Why? Because the government came with a lot of promise to secure the whole country. There will be total security and all that, and nothing is happening. You know, the situation has repeated itself, and now it's even worse. Election is at the corner, and look at what is happening. And the funny thing about it is that they are not giving us the accurate number. Nobody, the parents are saying a different number, and the government of YOBE State is saying a different thing. Nobody is actually on point. So it's really sad, and it's not good for this country.
I say it's very sad to hear such story again after the military said they have defeated Boko Haram. It's very disappointing that Nigerians play politics with anything. I could remember when the issue of Chibok girls happened, they said the government is not proactive in fighting Boko Haram. Now, the government that is proactive, they are here now, and they can't fight it. The same thing is repeating itself. So where are we going? You see, the primary responsibility of any government is protection of life and property. Once you have failed in that regard, you have failed woefully. We don't mind how much you have saved from the covered loot. That is not the essence of government. What we want is that secure our life and our property first. The issue of money will come last.
It's rather pathetic. Actually, when I saw it on the news, I was wondering if it was really true, because I was looking at how we said we've actually conquered Boko Haram, at least to a very large point, and then we are hearing another new case of a similar experience in a place not even far away from the place where the initial one happened. I just think we are not really telling ourselves some truth in this country. We are not telling ourselves the truth, because if our armed forces are really fighting, and if we say we are pushing this Boko Haram backwards, and then we are winning the war over insurgency in the northeast, I think we should see more. We should see more on the part of the armed forces. We should see more in the aspect of not hearing new cases of things that have happened in the past. So I really think something is not right, and I think that thing needs to be put in place. More truths should be told to us as a country so that we know the way forward.
I think it's about 4 years ago about the abduction of the Chibok girls. The issue is already on ground already, and so our military have been trying their best to rescue those girls from that issues. But for now, we've heard about another different one from YOBE state recently now. What I strongly believe that the military should have mobilized the troops, go down to that place, even if the government is not doing well. They should go ahead and go there and do something and rescue those children out of that place. Because the people, there are people's children. If we allow our children to go to such school and there are no security, means they are all in danger. As an individual, we should also be very vigilant. If there's any information, we'll give them so that they can work with it. Only them cannot do anything with themselves. They should move ahead. If we have any information concerning it, we should let them know so that the security will work in hand in hand with our civilians.
I said I feel terrible about the whole thing. Even if I'm not a mother, although I'm a mother, even as a sister, even as a concerned Nigerian, no, I don't feel good about it as a human being. I feel terrible. I feel disappointed in our government that they are not doing what they are supposed to do. They are meant to protect us as their individual, protect life and property, but here in Nigeria, human life looks as if it's not. It's even, I mean, even if you have a chicken now, if you have a poultry, you know, you take care of that poultry because you know you're going to make profit. If you have anything, any pet, you take care of that pet. But in Nigeria, our government, they don't care about our lives. They just waste people's lives. Maybe because you're not directly involved, it looks as if it's nothing. But I mean, it's human life that we're talking about here. I really feel bad about it.
The government have to be proactive. Even though Mr. President has sent Air Force surveillance for 24 hours, that is not enough. Schools in this region, there should be security apparatus that are guiding these people. In fact, there should be a CCTV and there should be a control room where in case of any emergency, the person can call operation, I've forgotten the operation, whatever they call them there. Is it Operation Lafiadole that is in charge of the Northeast? There should be somebody that is manning the security room, the CCTV room, that any emergency, you can be able to call them. Because I discovered that what happens, well, because the principal of the school, you know, went for safety. Of course, you can, even if it is you run away now. Nobody wants to die. So if that person is there, that is in the computer room, he should be able to send a signal to Operation Lafiadole. Before you know it, they will come up. But such things are not there. So the government should look into this. I'm sorry to say this, if nothing is done, another state will attack.
My thoughts this week are with our girls kidnapped in YOBE state. How many times will these incidents happen for our leaders to put the proper machinery in place to avoid a repeat? 4 years ago, April 14, 2014 to be precise, when the Chibok kidnap took place, one would have thought that 4 years moving forward, our intelligence and security experience would have prevented the same scenario from playing out again. Thank God that for the first time the APC is not blaming the PDP for this unfortunate incident. We are also glad that the President has expressed his sadness over the incident. But this situation needs more than an expression of sadness. What it needs is definitive action. It is time the authorities reviewed our ways of fighting insurgency and terrorism in our shores, especially this particular one by the Boko Haram. As they say, when the drum beats change, the dancers must change their dancing steps. This is the time to change our style and approach in this insurgency fight. Whatever needs to be done must be done to ensure that these innocent children do not stay a day longer in the custody of these criminals. Twice beaten, twice shy. That's our program for today. Please keep the messages coming using our social media platforms, WhatsApp, Twitter, Facebook, email, and others. Don't also forget that to watch today's program or our past programs, all you need to do is go to our online TV, signaturetv.com.ng. Until I come your way again next Sunday at 2 p.m. from the Signature Studios in Abuja, Nigeria, I am Vin Martin Obiora Ilo, asking you to enjoy the rest of your day.